Hello everyone and welcome to the third part of the series of screencasts about mobile app development. This one is going to be about Amazon Web Services deployment. It's been a while since I did the last recording, since I've been pretty busy, but finally here's the part 3. So in the previous two screencasts I already created a application server in Spring, and in the second one a iOS application with RESTKit. So in this part 3 we're gonna deploy our application server in Amazon Web Services. And also this screencast can really be applied to any application server. It doesn't have to be for mobile, it doesn't even have to be in Spring. But in this one we're gonna deploy the application created in the previous screencast. So let's have a look at Amazon Web Services. Of course, Amazon Web Services is a cloud computing service. You can read more about cloud computing anywhere. They also have some YouTube videos about it, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail in that. I am gonna show a little bit of the architecture and show what we're gonna use. Here you basically see the architecture of Amazon Web Services. So what we're gonna do is deploy our application server in here. It's gonna be in this layer, and we'll also create a database. Then Amazon Web Services is gonna pretty much manage everything, including Elastic Load Balancing, which if we would have multiple instances, it would do requests between those instances. And it also has the auto scaling, which could deploy multiple instances. So once you create a Amazon Web Services account, you're pretty much gonna be seeing this console with all the different Amazon Web Services components. What we're gonna use is just a couple of these. Our application server is going to be running into a EC2 instance. That stands for Elastic Cloud Computing. And our database is going to be a RDS, which we see here, a Managed Relational Database Service. And we're going to manage that through Elastic Beanstalk, which is quite handy since it is managing a lot of things like the load balancing, the auto scaling. If we have a look at the Elastic Beanstalk architecture, we can see that here. We have our web server, database, and it's managing the auto scaling group, security groups. So let's get started by creating a database. Elastic Beanstalk can also automatically create a RDS with each application. However, we're not going to use that, because if you do that and you terminate your environment, then the database is also going to be terminated. And especially if you have a staging area and a production environment, then you might want to switch between those environments and keep the same database. So having the RDS separate from the Beanstalk environment is solving this issue. So let's go into RDS, and we're gonna launch a DB instance. It's gonna be a MySQL database. We're gonna do a micro instance. And by the way, if you are new to using Amazon Web Services, they have a low tier, which allows you to use a lot of things for free when you just get started for the first year. So if you don't use more than one instance, for example, then most likely you're gonna stay into the free tier. So we're gonna enable multi-AZ deployment. That means that the database can be hosted in multiple deployment zones. Basically, what you can see here is that Amazon Web Services has different regions, and each region has multiple availability zones. Also will allow it to do minor upgrades. I'm just going to use the minimum 5 GB storage here, and let's call it pizza instance, pizza admin, and pizza password. Let's create. Call the database pizza, and just going to leave all of these default values. Just going to disable automatic backups for this demo, Normally, of course, you want to enable this. And we're going to launch it. So in the meantime, while this is being created, let's go to our Spring application that we created in the past, and let's already change the database properties here. So we chose username pizza admin and password pizza password. Of course, also soon we'll need to change this URL, but actually we're not going to hard code that. We're going to use environment variables for that, which is a feature that Amazon Web Services provide for you. So since we don't know the endpoint yet, we cannot yet fill this in. So let's open up Elastic Beanstalk and create a new application. We're just going to customize this because we do not want it to create a sample application, which it would do by default. Application name, I'm gonna call it pizza, and of course we want it here to be Tomcat. Just gonna use a 30-bit this time. And here you can see we need to upload an existing application. So now we need to create our WAR file and deploy it here. So before doing that, I already told you we need our endpoint here, but we're going to use the environment variable. So if we go to our application context and see here, it's using the database URL, but we're going to replace that with this environment variable. And later on we'll see where Amazon Web Services provides you the place to fill in this string. Of course we could build the WAR with Maven, but for now we're just going to export here. And we'll choose WAR. And we're going to deploy it somewhere. There we have our WAR. So now we can upload our WAR. We'll press continue. Now every application also needs an environment. And let's check if this is available. It actually is. And here we're gonna uncheck create a RDS DB instance with this environment. We'll press continue. So the instance type, also here we're gonna choose micro because that falls within the free tier. And now here we have existing key pair which allows us to log into the EC2 instance. So before we create this, we actually need this key pair because it's not possible to fill this in afterwards. So let's go to our EC2, and this is very easy to create. Just go to key pairs, and we create a new pair. Just call it pizza. It's already downloaded. So what this does, it creates this key pair, and with this key in the future you can SSH into the instance. If you don't do this, then in the future it's not going to be possible to SSH into your instance that's created by the Elastic Beanstalk. So here we're gonna fill it in. So here you can fill in an email address on which you receive emails when, for example, your environment went down. Application held, check URL. Just gonna leave that empty, but this allows you to enter a specific URL that you want AWS to check every time. So press continue. So here's an overview of everything. I will just click finish. So after this, it's going to take a couple of minutes before this has been uploaded, but let's see if our DB instance has been created by now. There we go. We see our DB instance and our endpoint. So we're going to fill this in later into our environment variable. So now normally if you would create a new application and environment in Elastic Beanstalk, then if you create a RDS with that, then the created EC2 instances will automatically have access to your database. But since we created them separately, we have to create a security group for that. So here we see the default security group that's being used by our database, and this is the default configuration for that. Now, also if you want to test and connect to your database with, for example, MySQL, then you can enter your IP here, which is already provided here. Then you can safely connect. Otherwise, it's denied from any IP, of course. So here we need to allow our EC2 instance to connect to the database. So I just waited a little bit until our environment started. And now we can see it started. And if we go into our EC2 management console, then we see our instance running here. We can see here the security group that has been created for us, and we're going to assign that security group to our database. We need to pick here EC2 security group, and then pick the correct security group that's just been created. Normally you'll only see one here, but since I did some testing before, there's still an old one. I'm going to edit, maybe a little bit, edit, then we'll come back to that. Now here we can see our environment running, and we need to edit this configuration to fill in our connection string to our database. So for that we go to container, and here we can see already some environment properties, JWT connection string, which corresponds to the one we filled in here. We're going to fill that in. And we have to find our endpoint. Here, paste that. And the name of our database is apply changes, and of course we'll have to wait a little bit because the environment is going to restart. In the meantime, we can already fill in this URL into our app. Here we have our app, and you can see it's still using localhost. New URL. This one doesn't need its entity behind it because that was just our local host. And we're going to keep the other one around as well for testing. So we can easily switch between the two. This one. And after a little bit of waiting, you should see now that our environment is running. So we're just going to launch our app here. Now it is running, and it seems to be loading fine, but of course we don't have pizzas yet, so we need to create some pizzas. Let's do it the same way as we did it last time. Just go to this URL, and you can see our application is running. Create a new pizza. Save it. Go back to our app. Press it, and here we see our pizza. So those are the basic steps just to get the application running into Amazon Web Services. And in some of the next screencasts, I'll go into a little bit more detail on some things. For example, how you can assign your own domain to the server. and also how you can switch between a staging server and a production server. And I'll show you some more of the advanced options of Amazon Web Services. Thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed the video, and to see you in the next one as well.